The night New York fell, the sky itself seemed to bleed. Above the shattered skyline, colossal alien warships hovered like burning fortresses, their cracked hulls glowing with rivers of molten red. With each thunderous pulse, they unleashed beams of fire that carved entire skyscrapers in half. Towers that had stood for a century collapsed into clouds of ash and glass. On the streets below, chaos reigned. Civilians stampeded through rubble, clutching children, dragging wounded strangers, screaming for help that never came. Alien drones swooped through the smoke, serpent-shaped machines of polished black steel, their eyes glowing blue, their plasma weapons cutting through crowds with merciless precision. Major Mara Reynolds, United States Air Force, retired, sprinted down Broadway, lungs burning, uniform long replaced by a torn leather jacket and combat boots. Once she had flown F-35 Raptors for her country. Tonight she was just another survivor. "Keep moving," she shouted, pulling a bleeding man away from a collapsing wall. Above, the thunder of jet engines filled the sky. U.S. fighter squadrons tore across the clouds, firing missile salvos at the alien fortress. Explosions flared against the hull, but the damage was laughable. A plasma beam lashed out, vaporizing 3 jets at once. Their flaming wreckage rained down over Times Square. Mara winced. Those had been her people once. Her earpiece crackled. "Mara, this is Dr. Raina Carter. You need to reach the safe house now. I've got intel you'll want to see." "I'm a little busy running for my life," Mara barked back, diving behind a flipped police car as another drone strafed the street. The machine shrieked in synthetic tones. "Target acquired. Human termination in progress." Mara's sidearm was useless against armor like that, but instincts never left a pilot. She spotted the corpse of a Marine nearby, RPG launcher still clutched in burned hands. Mara dove, rolled, snatched the weapon, and came up firing. The rocket slammed into the drone's chest. With a screech of tearing metal and sizzling plasma, the machine erupted into shards, its remains scattering across ruined pavement. Mara lowered the smoking launcher and muttered, "Welcome to Earth, asshole." But before she could breathe, a shadow fell across the ruins. Her eyes widened. One of the skyburners, an alien dreadnought, was descending, its underbelly splitting open like the jaws of a predator. Heat shimmered through the air as its massive vent began to glow. "Oh, hell no." "Mara!" Raina's panicked voice blasted through the comm. "That ship is charging its primary beam. Get underground now." Mara bolted, sprinting through firestorms and falling debris. She hurled herself down the entrance of a shattered subway just as the dreadnought fired. The world above turned into a sun. A deafening roar shook the tunnels. Dust and flame poured down stairwells. Mara hit the ground hard, ears ringing, ribs aching, but alive. Around her, survivors huddled in the dark. Families, soldiers without weapons, ordinary New Yorkers too stubborn to die quietly. From the shadows, a tall man stepped forward. He carried no rifle, only a heavy toolkit strapped to his side. His face was smudged with soot, but his brown eyes were sharp, steady. "Name's Alex Monroe," he said in a calm, measured voice. His accent carried the clipped precision of New England. "MIT engineer. I know a way to the old Metro command station. If we cut through the service shafts, we can get there before the next bombardment." Mara studied him. Not a soldier, but not panicking either. That was rare. "You're sure?" He nodded. "I built half the power relays in these tunnels. Trust me, I know the bones of this city." Mara holstered her pistol. "Fine. Lead on." Hours later, they emerged into the abandoned Metro Command station, a forgotten bunker beneath the city. Cracked monitors still glowed with emergency power. Maps of subway lines stretched across the walls, coated in dust. But it was safe. At the far end of the chamber, Dr. Raina Carter stood waiting. She had once been a lead researcher at DARPA, her field, biosynthetic warfare countermeasures. Tonight her lab coat was torn, her hands black with ash, but her eyes blazed with the same relentless intelligence that had driven her through years of government black projects. "Mara, Alex," she exhaled, visibly relieved. "You made it." "Barely." Mara muttered, throwing down her empty rifle. You said you had intel. It better be worth the hell I just ran through. Reyna didn't waste time. She powered up a monitor, showing shaky drone footage of an alien warship. Its jagged hull glowed, fissures pulsing like arteries. They're not machines, Reyna said, her voice grim. Not entirely. The Zorkai don't build their warships, they grow them. Half metal, half organism. Alex frowned, stepping closer. Biotech on a scale we've never seen. Reyna zoomed in on the glowing fissures. Living cores. They harvest energy from conquered species to fuel their fleets, and based on my data, they've started using us. The survivors went silent. Some whispered prayers, others wept quietly. Mara's jaw tightened. You're telling me they're burning human beings to keep their ships running? Reyna nodded once. Every time a city falls, every evacuation, we've seen it isn't mercy, it's fuel collection. For a moment, Mara's fist clenched so hard her knuckles cracked. Then she forced herself to speak evenly. Fine, so tell me the part where we can kill these bastards. Reyna changed the feed, highlighting a smaller alien craft slithering through clouds. Sleek, serpent-like, glowing faintly from within. This is their patrol vessel, Reyna said. It has the same living core, but smaller. If we can bring one down, I can study it, maybe weaponize its own biology against them. Mara arched an eyebrow. You want us to hijack an alien ship? With what? New York's finest slingshots? Alex's voice cut in, quiet but firm. No, she's right. Both women turned to him. He adjusted the strap of his toolkit. Their technology runs on patterns. If I can get my hands on a control interface, even for a second, I might be able to reverse engineer. We'd finally have something that hits back. Reyna met Mara's eyes. It's suicide, I know, but so is sitting here waiting for them to burn the rest of the country. The room fell silent. Outside, the faint rumble of the sky burners shook the earth. Finally, Mara smirked, a humorless edge in her voice. Well, guess it's time America hijacked herself a spaceship. The Metro command station felt like a graveyard of an old war. Maps of New York's subway lines still clung to cracked walls, and the scent of rust and mold lingered in the stale air. The survivors huddled in the dim light of emergency lamps, whispering prayers, clutching scavenged weapons. They were teachers, construction workers, cops, ordinary Americans caught in the apocalypse. But 3 of them were not ordinary. Mara Reynolds, U.S. Air Force veteran. Alex Monroe, MIT engineer. Dr. Reyna Carter, DARPA scientist. Together, they were all that stood between survival and extinction. Reyna's voice carried across the bunker as she pointed to a flickering monitor. These are not ships, they're hybrids. Half metal, half organism. They grow them, not build them. On screen, a smaller alien vessel slithered across clouds, serpent-like, its hull glowing faintly. That's a patrol craft, Reyna continued. We bring one down, I can study its core. If we're lucky, we find a way to fight back. Mara crossed her arms, skepticism etched into her face. You're suggesting 3 people and a handful of civvies take on an alien war machine. That's not strategy, Doc, that's suicide. But Alex leaned forward, studying the schematics Reyna had patched together. His voice was calm, calculating. No, she's right. The patrol vessels rely on smaller living cores, probably less protected. If I can get inside the interface, I might reverse engineer their system, turn their own biotech into a weapon. Reyna met Mara's eyes. It's insane, but sitting here, waiting for New York to burn, is worse. Mara sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. She had flown missions in Afghanistan, Syria, even Black Ops sorties no one would ever admit happened. But nothing compared to this. Finally, she smirked. Fine, let's go steal ourselves a spaceship. The plan was crude but simple. Lure a patrol craft into a kill zone, hit it with Alex's improvised EMP device, then swarm it with every bit of firepower they could scrape together. The survivors scavenged through the wreckage of the city for supplies, shotguns from abandoned police cruisers, rifles from fallen guardsmen, homemade Molotovs from shattered liquor stores. It was the arsenal of the desperate. Mara walked the line, checking weapons, drilling the terrified civilians. She barked like the officer she once was. Keep your head down. Fire in short bursts. And if you see one of those drones, shoot the sensors, not the body. Understood? Fear lingered in their eyes, but they nodded. Americans or not, tonight they were soldiers. Alex tinkered with his device. A jerry-rigged EMP, scavenged from subway relays and car batteries. It buzzed and whined, dangerous just to touch. Will it work? Mara asked. Alex didn't look up. It'll either fry their systems or fry us. 50-50 shot. Hell of an engineer's promise, Mara muttered, loading her rifle. At dawn, they made their stand on the ruins of the East River overpass. The morning sky was choked with smoke, the Statue of Liberty half shrouded in alien haze. Then it came. A patrol craft slithered low across the skyline, wings shimmering with organic light. Its voice echoed like a predator growl. Human presence. Detected. Prepare for termination. Mara raised her fist. Hold! The survivors crouched, Molotovs and rifles ready. Alex triggered the EMP, a pulse of invisible force erupted upward. The air crackled. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the patrol ship spasmed violently, its glow flickering. It roared, veering off course, plasma blasts carving wild scars across the ruins. Now! Mara shouted. Molotovs arced through, the air smashing against the hull in gouts of fire. Rifles cracked, bullets sparking across its surface. The ship shrieked in an inhuman frequency, thrashing like a wounded beast. Alex slammed a grounding spike into the overpass, attaching cables to his device. Electricity snapped upward, latching onto the vessel like chains. With a final scream, the patrol craft crashed into the river with an explosion of water and steam. The survivors roared in victory. Mara's voice cut through them. It's not dead. Move in. She sprinted down the collapsed road, Alex at her side. Reyna and two armed civilians followed close, covering them from drones that swooped in to protect their fallen master. The wreck hissed and steamed, half submerged in the East River. Mara scrambled up the slick, glowing surface, her boots slipping on living metal flesh. She ripped open a gash in the hull with her rifle, forcing a path inside. The smell hit her first, like copper and rot mixed with burning plastic. God, Alex muttered, crawling in behind her. It's alive. The interior pulsed like muscle, veins of metal glowing faintly. The walls twitched at their touch, as if recoiling. Strange glyphs glowed and shifted, watching them. Mara gritted her teeth. Reyna, you better be seeing this, her comm crackled. I am. Keep moving. They followed the corridor deeper until it opened into a chamber. At its heart pulsed a massive core, half crystal, half living organ. It throbbed with molten light, each beat shaking the air, and inside its glow, human faces flickered. Dozens of them. Twisted in agony, mouths open in silent screams. Reyna's voice trembled in their ears. That's it. The living core. They're burning human energy to power the ship. Alex staggered forward, horrified. They're alive. Still alive in there. Mara froze, rifle aimed at the core. Rage boiled in her chest. Every instinct screamed to fire, to destroy it, to put those faces out of their misery. No, Reyna snapped. If you destroy it, we learn nothing. You have to extract it. Mara's voice cracked. They're suffering. Look at them. Alex grabbed her shoulder. His voice was quiet, steady. Mara, she's right. If we ever want to end this, we need it. The ship convulsed violently, as if resisting. Drones battered at the hull outside, shrieking to get in. Do it, Reyna urged. Wire it now! Gritting his teeth, Alex tore open his toolkit, connecting cables, rerouting circuits. Sparks flew as he jury-rigged an interface. Mara covered him, gunning down a drone that burst through the corridor wall. The core pulsed faster, human faces, writhing, screaming in silence. The sound in Mara's head grew unbearable, like she could feel their pain. Finally, Alex shouted, Got it! The core dimmed, pulsing slower, its energy siphoned into containment. The ship let out one final scream that rattled the bones in their chests. And then silence. Outside, the drones froze. One by one, they collapsed into the water, lifeless. Breathless, Mara lowered her rifle. The survivors cheered faintly in the distance. "We did it," Alex whispered. "We stole their heart." But as Mara looked at the faces still twisting in the glow, she felt no victory, only horror. Because for the first time she understood the Zorkai's true cruelty. They weren't just killing humanity, they were consuming it. The river still steamed where the alien patrol craft had crashed hours ago. Its twisted carcass, part steel, part flesh, now lay tethered beneath the old Brooklyn Bridge. What had once been a weapon of the Zorkai was now under American hands. Inside, the Metro Command Station, floodlights blazed as survivors worked tirelessly. Sparks showered as Alex Monroe crawled across the alien hull, his MIT-trained mind locked into a rhythm of soldering wires and carving into alien biometal. His hands were blistered, his face pale with exhaustion, but his voice carried iron determination. "This thing isn't just a ship," he muttered, tightening a cable. "It's a nervous system. Every control runs like a neural impulse. If I can sync our relay signals into its organic pathways, we can actually pilot it." Mara Reynolds stood nearby, arms crossed, watching. Her eyes narrowed at the living vessel. It pulsed faintly, like a massive heart refusing to die. "You're telling me this thing's brain is still alive?" Alex wiped his brow. "Alive, yeah. Cooperative? Not exactly. Think of it like taming a wild animal with a chainsaw for a mouth." Mara smirked grimly. "Sounds like my kind of pet." At the far end, Dr. Raina Carter monitored data streaming across salvaged screens. She looked up. "If Alex is right and we can actually pilot this, we might be able to strike back, hit their supply drones, cut their occupation lines, maybe even rally the resistance outside New York." Mara raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about starting a war?" Raina's expression hardened. "No, Major. The war already started. I'm talking about fighting it." By nightfall, the first test began. The survivors gathered in silence as Mara climbed into the alien vessel. The cockpit, if it could be called that, was a chamber lined with twitching sinew and pulsating glyphs. The air was hot, damp, and smelled faintly of copper and blood. Alex stood beside her, wires trailing from a portable control relay strapped to his chest. He placed a headset onto Mara. "Think of it like flight controls. Forward, back, yaw, pitch. But instead of a stick, you're interfacing directly with its neural grid. Your thoughts will guide it." Mara slid into the fleshy pilot seat. The moment her skin touched the living surface, she felt it, like icy fingers pressing against her mind. The ship knew she was there. It resisted, thrashing against her thoughts, trying to shake her out. Her jaw clenched. Not today. She forced her mind into focus, recalling every flight she'd ever flown over Afghanistan deserts and Pacific skies. "You're mine now. Obey." The ship twitched, then stilled. "System stable," Alex whispered, eyes wide at the readings. "Holy shit, she's sinking." Raina leaned forward, whispering. "Then we just made history." Mara opened her eyes. The glyphs before her shifted into patterns she instinctively understood. A rush of alien perception flooded her brain. Wind currents, heat signatures, pulses of distant drones. For a heartbeat, she was no longer Mara Reynolds. She was something more. She grinned. "Let's take this thing for a spin." The alien craft lifted off the river like a predator unchained, its molten wings unfolding with a shriek. New Yorkers hiding in the ruins looked up in awe and fear as the vessel roared into the sky. To them it was a nightmare reborn. But tonight it was piloted by human hands. "Ghost 1. Alex's voice came through the comm. "How's she flying?" Mara banked hard, the ship twisting like a serpent through burning clouds. Plasma trails carved the night behind her. She laughed, a sound she hadn't made in weeks. "Like a dream and a nightmare. I can feel it fighting me, but it's under control." Reyna's voice cut in. Don't get comfortable. I've marked a supply convoy moving through Jersey. Dozens of drones escorting a harvester transport. If we can wipe it out, we save thousands from being dragged into those cores. Mara's grin vanished. Coordinates received. Moving in. The convoy crawled across the ruins of the New Jersey Turnpike. Towering alien walkers herding terrified civilians into armored transports while swarms of serpent drones circled overhead. From the shadows of the clouds, Mara descended. Targets locked, she muttered, hands gripping the living controls. The ship responded with a snarl. Plasma cannons flared from its sides, spearing through the sky. Drones exploded in bursts of blue fire. Walkers collapsed under molten strikes, their carapaces splitting open like broken insects. On the ground, civilians looked up in shock. At you. First, they screamed in terror, thinking another alien vessel had come to harvest them. But then they saw the drones falling one after another under the serpent ship's guns. It's fighting for us, someone shouted. Mara's lips curved into a smile. For the first time, humanity wasn't running. Humanity was hitting back. Alex's voice buzzed. You're making history, Major. The first human pilot of an alien warship. Mara banked hard, ripping through another formation of drones. Then let's make it count. But the victory was short-lived. The sky shimmered as a larger shadow descended. Another patrol craft, this one bigger, faster, angrier. Its core glowed brighter, its scream shaking the clouds. Reyna's voice sharpened. Mara, you've got company. It knows you're not one of them. The enemy vessel locked onto her. Plasma lances streaked past her hull, scorching the river. Below, Mara grit her teeth, throwing the serpent ship into a dive. Alien instinct surged into her brain, guiding her hands. She twisted through fire, rolling between collapsing skyscrapers. Debris rained around her as plasma blasts shattered concrete. Alex, I need more power, she yelled. I'm working on it. Alex shouted, fingers flying across his relay board. But this thing wasn't built for human overrides. You push too hard, and it'll fry your brain. Story of my life, Mara muttered. The enemy ship closed in. Its glow intensified, charging a beam that could level half the block. Mara whispered to herself, not today. She pulled hard on the neural interface, forcing the ship into a vertical climb. The alien vessel resisted, pain stabbing through her skull, but she held on. The enemy fired, the beam slicing just below, melting asphalt into rivers of lava. Come on, you bastard! At the peak of the climb, Mara spun, diving straight back down at the enemy. Plasma cannons roared, slamming into the rival's hull. With a scream of tearing metal and flesh, the enemy ship spiraled out of control, crashing into the Hudson in a column of steam. Silence followed. Then cheers. Civilians on the ground raised their fists, their voices echoing through the ruins. Ghost, ghost, ghost! Mara exhaled shakily, sweat pouring down her face. Ghost, huh? I like the sound of that. Alex's voice cracked with a laugh. Congratulations, Major. You just founded the first squadron of the Resistance. Reyna's voice was softer, but no less fierce. Ghost Squadron, the first light in the darkness. Mara looked at the burning horizon. The Zorkai were still out there, millions of them, endless fleets hanging above Earth. But tonight, humanity had shown something they could never understand. They weren't prey. They were predators, too. The ruins of Manhattan buzzed with whispers. Stories spread like wildfire. An American pilot flying an alien warship, a phantom vessel striking back against the Zorkai. They called it the Ghost. For the first time since the invasion, people dared to hope. But hope was fragile, and hope attracted enemies. Underground in the old subway command hub, the survivors had grown from a handful into hundreds. Engineers, medics, refugees, men and women who refused to kneel. They came carrying weapons scavenged from fallen soldiers and stories of atrocities committed in Boston, Atlanta, Chicago. Mara Reynolds, now commander of Ghost Squadron, stood before a rough map of the eastern seaboard marked with crude pins and ink. Alex Monroe and Dr. Reyna Carter flanked her, listening as scouts reported. Zorkai harvest convoys are increasing, one said grimly. They're clearing out towns faster than we can move people. Another added, "And patrols. They're looking for you, Major." Every sector broadcast repeats the same warning. "The ghost must be destroyed." Mara crossed her arms. "Good. That means we hurt them." Alex leaned forward. "It also means they'll start sending bigger ships. We can't rely on one serpent craft forever." Reyna tapped the map. "Which is why we need allies. If we rally more survivors, teach them what we've learned, build a network, we can turn this into a real resistance." Ghost Squadron. Can be more than just one ship, it can be an idea. Mara nodded, but unease coiled in her chest. Ideas were powerful, but ideas also bred betrayal. That night, Mara found herself walking the tunnels alone. The walls echoed with laughter and conversation, refugees cooking meals, children playing for the first time in months. For a fleeting moment, it felt almost like a normal city. Then she heard voices she wasn't supposed to. "I'm telling you, it's suicide," a man hissed from the shadows of a supply alcove. "Reynolds thinks we can fight them? One ship against an armada? She'll get us all killed." Another voice, lower, calmer. "Not if we make a deal. The Zorkai want her. We hand them the ghost. We get protection, food, shelter, maybe even freedom." Mara's blood ran cold. She didn't step forward, didn't reveal herself. She memorized the voices, the cadence. Traitors. In her own ranks. The next day, Alex was buried in alien circuitry when Mara pulled him aside. "We've got a leak," she said quietly. Alex blinked. "A leak? What do you mean?" She lowered her voice. "Someone's talking about making a deal with the Zorkai. Trading me. Trading the ghost for protection." Alex's face paled. "Shit. If that's true, we're dead before we start." Mara clenched her fists. "I don't know who yet, but I'll find them. And when I do..." Alex hesitated. He had seen Mara ruthless in combat, but this was different. These were their own people. "Be careful. Fear makes people stupid. Not everyone's a traitor. Some are just scared." Her eyes hardened. "And scared people get the rest of us killed." 2 days later, the betrayal came. Ghost Squadron was prepping for another strike, this time against a Zorkai relay tower in Newark. If they could destroy it, they'd blind enemy patrols across 3 states. Mara was in the cockpit syncing with the Serpent craft when the alarms blared. Reyna's voice screamed over the comm. "Incoming! Zorkai patrol inbound from the river, too fast, they knew where we were." Mara's stomach dropped. The traitors hadn't just talked, they had acted. Alien drones poured into the subway ruins, plasma fire ripping through makeshift barricades. Panic erupted. Survivors scattered, screaming as walls collapsed around them. Mara ripped the ghost into motion, the vessel shrieking as it clawed its way out of the tunnel. She burst into the open sky just as enemy fighters swarmed overhead. "Alex, Reyna, get the civilians out!" she shouted, diving into the fray. The ghost roared, shredding the first wave with plasma bursts. But more kept coming. For every drone she killed, 2 replaced it. The enemy knew their target, and deep down Mara knew why. Someone inside had painted a target on their backs. Inside the chaos, Alex dragged Reyna through falling debris. They guided civilians into escape tunnels, but enemy fire blocked half the exits. "We can't hold them," Reyna cried. Alex looked, up at the ghost blazing through the sky. His voice was grim. "Then Mara has to end this fast, or we all die here." Above, the ghost fought like a demon. Mara rolled through plasma fire, cannon blasts lighting the night. Civilians below looked, up their terror mixed with awe. The ghost was bleeding, its hull cracked, but it refused to fall. The enemy leader, a massive Zorkai destroyer, descended from the clouds, its red glow staining the city. Its voice echoed like thunder across comms. "Human pilot, you dishonor the flesh you wear. Yield the vessel and your species may live." Mara spat into the interface. "Tell your masters this. Earth doesn't kneel." The destroyer's core ignited. The battle raged for what felt like hours. Buildings crumbled, rivers boiled, the sky itself burned. And yet somehow, the ghost held. Mara's mind bled from the strain, her vision swimming, but she pressed on. Then, through the chaos, she heard a different sound. Gunfire. Human gunfire. Down below, survivors, ordinary men and women armed with scavenged rifles, were fighting back. They weren't running anymore, they weren't hiding. They were defending their home. Ghost! 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 Their chant rose, even over the thunder of battle. Mara's lips curled into a feral smile. Humanity was learning. With a final surge, she drove the ghost straight into the destroyer's core. Plasma tearing through alien flesh metal, the behemoth shrieked, then collapsed into the river in an explosion that shook the city. The remaining drones scattered, retreating into the clouds. Silence fell. Hours later, the subway base smoldered, half destroyed. But the people were alive. Against impossible odds, they had survived. Mara walked through the wreckage, her body trembling with exhaustion. She looked at the faces around her, faces lit not by fear but by defiance. Reyna approached, bandaged and bloodied, but standing tall. We lost a lot, but we're still here, and more people are coming. Word is spreading faster than the Zorkai can contain it. Alex limped beside her, his arm in a sling. His voice was grim. But someone sold us out. Someone in this camp betrayed us. Until we find them, we're bleeding from the inside. Mara's eyes burned with fury. She looked at the survivors, knowing the traitor was among them. Her voice was cold, sharp as a blade. Whoever you are, you listen well. You thought giving me to the Zorkai would break us, but all you did was light a fire. We are Ghost Squadron, and no matter what it takes, we will never stop fighting. The survivors cheered, their voices echoing through the ruins. But in the shadows unseen, the traitor watched and smiled. The survivors called it Black Spire. On the coast of New Jersey, a towering alien structure rose like a wound against the horizon. It wasn't made of stone or steel, but of living black metal that pulsed with a crimson glow. At its peak, a spire clawed into the clouds, broadcasting a constant signal, an alien beacon that kept Zorkai patrols coordinated across half the eastern seaboard. Every raid, every strike, every ambush Ghost Squadron had attempted was answered within minutes. Because of that tower, as long as it stood, the invaders were never blind, which meant it had to fall. Inside the underground command hub, Mara Reynolds gathered her team around a flickering projector. The crude hologram showed the spire, ringed with patrols and bristling with defenses. Black Spire is a relay hub, Reyna explained, pointing at glowing nodes. If we destroy its core, every Zorkai force east of the Appalachians goes dark. They'll be blind, deaf, and scrambling. Alex crossed his arms, and furious. Mara's voice cut sharp. That's the point. If humanity's going to fight, we need to show them the Zorkai can bleed. Around the room, resistance fighters, farmers, engineers, ex-soldiers nodded grimly. They weren't trained soldiers, but they had fire in their eyes now. Mara stabbed her finger at the hologram. This is our first coordinated strike. Not just the ghost, all of us. We move tonight. The assault began under cover of storm clouds. On the ground, small resistance cells crept through ruined neighborhoods, planting explosives along the spire's perimeter. Above, Mara guided the ghost low through the lightning, its hull shimmering with stolen alien energy. Alex sat beside her, helmet strapped tight. He wasn't a natural pilot, but his quick instincts kept them alive. Reyna manned the tactical feed, relaying positions to the fighters below. All teams in position, Reyna whispered. On your command, Mara. Mara's jaw tightened. Light it up. The night exploded. Charges ripped through the spire's base, toppling alien pylons in showers of sparks. Resistance fighters poured from the shadows, rifles blazing. The ghost screamed overhead, tearing into Zorkai drones with bursts of blue-white plasma. For the first time, the fight wasn't one ship against the swarm. Humanity fought together. Squad Alpha, hold that corridor, Alex shouted into comms. Bravo, flank them. Don't let those drones regroup. The air was alive with chaos. Gunfire, plasma bolts, the roar of alien engines. Civilians who had been starving in the ruins only weeks ago now fought like warriors, driven by vengeance and hope. Mara's heart pounded with pride. This wasn't just survival. This was war. But the Zorkai weren't fools. The ground split open and a massive war machine crawled from beneath the spire. It resembled a spider forged of obsidian, its legs tipped with scythes, its body bristling with cannons. Red lightning arced across its shell as it screeched into the night. God Almighty, Alex muttered. They've got a walker. The machine fired, shredding entire blocks in one blast. Fighters were thrown like rag dolls, concrete towers collapsing under its barrage. Mara gritted her teeth. Reyna, give me a targeting solution. Reyna's voice cracked. Its armor's layered with phase shielding. I can't get a lock. Then we make one. Mara dove the ghost straight toward the beast, weaving between its plasma bolts. The serpent craft screamed as its hull boiled under enemy fire, but Mara didn't flinch. She aimed for the glowing joints in its legs, raking them with plasma bursts, until sparks flew. The walker staggered, but it wasn't enough. On the ground, resistance fighters fell back under the onslaught, and in the shadows of the chaos unseen, a figure whispered into a hidden calm. They're committed. The ghost is exposed. Now is the time. The traitor's voice was calm, deliberate, and somewhere, far above the clouds, an alien fleet began to move. Back in the cockpit, Alex spotted the walker charging its core cannon. Mara, if that fires, we're done. She clenched her jaw. Then we don't let it. In a move that should have been suicide, she throttled forward, the ghost diving headlong into the glowing cannon maw. At the last second, she twisted, releasing a surge of plasma directly into its core. The explosion tore through the walker, splitting it in half. Its scream echoed across the battlefield as its remains collapsed in flames. The resistance erupted in cheers. The Black Spire's defenders faltered, their lines breaking under the sudden loss of their war machine. Push! Push! Alex roared through comms. This is our chance. With a final coordinated barrage, ghost fire from above, human explosives from below, the spire itself began to shatter. Its crimson glow flickered, then died, as the tower collapsed into the sea with a deafening roar. For the first time since the invasion began, the skies over the East Coast were silent. The victory celebration was fierce. Survivors cheered, laughed, embraced one another through smoke and blood. For one night, they weren't prey. They were warriors who had taken something back. But Mara couldn't shake the chill in her bones, because even as she stood among her people, her gaze kept drifting to the shadows, to the memory of those whispers in the subway, to the thought of someone, somewhere speaking to the Zorkai while they bled and fought. The resistance had won its first true battle, but a traitor walked among them, and soon their greatest victory might become their deepest wound. The ruins of Philadelphia still smoldered when the sky began to burn again. It started as a low hum, like thunder rolling across the stratosphere. Survivors who had just begun to cheer victory looked upward, and their faces drained of color. Dozens of Zorkai warships slipped from the clouds, their hulls glowing with molten veins. They weren't patrol craft. These were carriers, and they were hunting Ghost Squadron. Inside the Ghost, alarm shrieked. Multiple signatures inbound. Reyna's voice trembled as data scrolled across her screen. Not drones, Mara. Whole war fleets. They must have been waiting just beyond the atmosphere. Alex slammed a fist against the console. Damn it, someone tipped them off. Mara's jaw locked. Her hands tightened on the controls. Then we draw them away. If they hit the survivors on the ground, the resistance dies here. The Ghost's engine screamed as it climbed into the storm. Behind them, a ragtag fleet of stolen alien skiffs and jury-rigged human craft followed. It wasn't much. Half a dozen pilots, a few converted transports, but it was all humanity had. The resistance had lit its first fire. Now, it had to survive the inferno. The sky tore open. Alien carriers deployed wave after wave of fighters, swarming like locusts. Their engines burned crimson and their formation was perfect. Calculated, mechanical, unrelenting. Here they come. Alex shouted, Mara threw the ghost into a roll, plasma cannons blazing. She clipped 2 drones, then dove through the swarm, weaving between enemy bolts. Around them, human craft fought with desperate ferocity. But one by one, the swarm chewed them apart. Squad Delta just went dark, Reyna cried. We can't hold this. We will hold, Mara snapped, even as sweat stung her eyes. Or everyone below dies. The battle spilled upward, climbing into the upper atmosphere. Beyond the clouds, the curve of the earth glowed in silence, and above it, blackness speckled with stars. It was there the ghost broke through, into the void. For a moment, Mara's breath caught. She hadn't seen the stars since the invasion began. No smoke, no fire, just infinite black and burning pinpricks of light. It might have been beautiful, if not for the armada that waited there. A Zorkai dreadnought hung in orbit, vast and skeletal, its spines glowing red as if molten rivers ran through them. It dwarfed every human vessel tenfold, and its guns turned toward Earth. They're not here to kill us, Reyna whispered. Her hands shook over the controls. They're here to burn the planet. Not while I'm breathing, Mara growled. But her confidence was a mask. The ghost was fast, agile, but it was still one ship against an army. Alex, Mara said, her voice low. If we can overload the ghost stolen core, maybe, just maybe, we can destabilize their dreadnought. He whipped his head toward her. That's suicide. Not if we time it right. The comms crackled suddenly, cutting through the chaos. A voice, calm, steady, human, spoke through the encrypted channel. Stand down, Ghost Squadron. You've won your little victory, but it ends here. You cannot fight the Zorkai. Surrender, and your people may be spared. The cockpit went silent. Alex's face went pale. That's a human voice. Reyna's hands clenched into fists. We've got a traitor. Someone's talking to them. Mara's chest burned with fury. Whoever they are, they'll die with the enemy. She cut the comm. The dreadnought superweapon began to glow, gathering energy like a burning star. A single shot could level half a continent. Targets locked, Reyna whispered. Mara, if it fires, the East Coast is gone. Mara's fingers tightened on the controls. Then we hit it now. All wings, form on me. The battered human fleet turned as one, diving into the swarm with suicidal courage. Plasma fire streaked in every direction. Ships exploded like fireflies in the dark, but they kept coming, slashing paths through the endless tide. The ghost led the charge, tearing into the dreadnought's outer defenses. Mara weaved through cannon fire, Alex feeding targeting data, Reyna overloading weapons beyond safe limits. The ship screamed as if alive, but it answered every command. Almost there, keep her steady, Alex shouted. The ghost punched through the dreadnought's shield, plunging toward its glowing core. Then, the trap snapped shut. Dozens of carriers moved in perfect synchronization, forming a wall around the dreadnought. The swarm thickened, encircling the ghost. Plasma fire lanced across the void. The ship jolted as alarms wailed. Hull integrity dropped. Sparks rained across the cockpit. We're boxed in, Reyna cried. Alex cursed, gripping the console. We can't push through. We'll be torn apart. Mara's voice was iron. We don't need to push through. We just need one opening. Her eyes flicked across the battlefield, searching desperately, and then she saw it. A crippled human transport drifting near the dreadnought's flank, its engines half dead. Inside, survivors screamed over comms, begging for help. Mara's heart twisted, but she saw more than desperation. She saw opportunity. Alex, she said quietly, if we overload their engines, it'll chain react against the dreadnought's shield. His eyes widened. You're saying we sacrifice them? Silence fell. The voices of the survivors echoed in their ears, pleading. Reyna shook her head, tears brimming. Mara, don't. Mara's hands trembled on the controls. One choice. Save thousands or doom millions. Her voice cracked, but she forced the order. Ghost to Transport 7, you're our only shot. You have to overload your core, now. On the other end of the comm, silence. Then a ragged voice filled with terror but also resolve. For Earth, do it. A second later, the transport erupted in a blinding explosion. The shockwave hammered through the void, slamming into the dreadnought's shields. For a heartbeat, the fortress staggered. Its glow faltered. "Now!" Mara roared. The ghost plunged through the breach, tearing into the dreadnought's heart. Plasma cannons fired at maximum, scorching the alien core. Sparks and molten fragments burst across space. The dreadnought screamed. Its molten veins shuddered, its spines cracking under the force. Then, with a roar that shook the heavens, the colossal warship erupted into fire. The humans had won, but at a terrible price. Half their fleet was gone. Survivors floated among the wreckage, their cries echoing. In the comms, the ghost limped back toward Earth, its hull blackened and burning. In the cockpit, Mara sat in silence, her hands still on the controls. Her knuckles were white. Alex stared out the viewport. "We beat them, but they'll be back." Reyna's voice was a whisper. "And we still don't know who betrayed us." Behind them, Earth spun silently, scarred but unbroken. The war had left the skies in ashes, but humanity still breathed, and Mara swore they would never kneel. The ghost limped back through the clouds, its hull scorched black, engines rattling like a dying heartbeat. Philadelphia burned below, a graveyard of broken towers and silent streets. The resistance camp, tents, ruined warehouses, shattered hangars, waited, like an island amid ash. As Mara brought the ghost down, silence filled the cockpit. No cheers, no relief, just exhaustion. They had destroyed the dreadnought. They had saved millions, and yet the weight of sacrifice crushed them like lead. Inside the command tent, the survivors of the fleet gathered. Dozens of pilots had flown. Barely 12 returned. Mara stood at the center, her uniform torn, her eyes rimmed red. "We held the skies," she said quietly. "The Zorkai dreadnought is gone. Earth still stands." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some wept, others nodded, with grim pride, but no one celebrated, because everyone knew victory came with a cost. Alex broke the silence. "We lost too many, and they knew where we'd be. They were waiting for us." Reyna's eyes flicked across the room, searching faces. "There's a traitor among us." The words landed like a thunderclap. Whispers surged. Suspicion rippled. Pilots turned on each other with narrowed eyes. Mara raised a hand. "Enough. Whoever it is, we'll find them. But until then, we keep fighting." Her voice was strong, but inside, doubt gnawed at her. That night, Mara sat alone inside the ghost's darkened cockpit. Outside, the camp's fires flickered against the ruins. Her hands rested on the console, tracing the cracks scorched into its surface. "We can't keep this up," she thought. "Every battle costs us more than we can spare." The comm panel crackled. A voice, calm, confident, human, slid into the cabin like a knife. "You're wasting your time, Mara. Humanity can't win this war, but you could survive. The Zorkai would welcome you." Her blood ran cold. It was the same voice from the battlefield. The traitor wasn't just feeding information. They were recruiting. Mara killed the channel with a slam of her fist, but the words lingered like poison. At dawn, Reyna shook her awake. "Mara, you need to see this." They climbed a broken tower overlooking the ruins. Reyna lifted a scope, her face pale. On the horizon, the sky shimmered. Black spires, alien structures rose like tumors across the landscape, glowing with molten veins. Around them, swarms of drones clustered like wasps. "They're terraforming," Reyna whispered. "The Zorkai aren't just burning cities anymore. They're reshaping Earth." Mara's stomach twisted. The spires pulsed like beating hearts, sending crimson lightning through the sky. Each one spread a shroud of ash that killed everything beneath it. Forests turned black, rivers boiled. In days, Earth could become uninhabitable. "They're making it theirs," Mara said softly. "They're not here to conquer. They're here to erase us." The council gathered again. Maps littered the table, marked with glowing spire locations. "We hit one," Alex said firmly. "Prove they can bleed." "It's suicide," a pilot snapped. "The spires are guarded by swarms. We barely survived the dreadnought." "We don't have a choice," Reyna countered. "If those spires spread, Earth's done." The room broke into arguments. Suspicion, fear, anger, all boiling. Mara stood, slamming her hand down. The tent fell silent. "We strike the nearest spire," she said coldly. "And we find the traitor, because if they warned the Zorkai once, they'll do it again." Eyes turned toward her, some with trust, others with doubt. But no one challenged. That night, Alex found her by the campfires. He dropped beside her, silent for a long while. Finally, he spoke. "Mara, what if the traitor is one of us?" She looked at him sharply. He didn't flinch. "Reyna's the only one with comms encryption access. She could have fed them." Mara's chest tightened. Reyna, who had stood by her since day one. Reyna, who had nearly died saving them. "No," Mara said, but her voice lacked conviction. Alex leaned closer. "I'm not saying it's her, but if we don't start asking questions, the whole resistance will tear itself apart." Mara stared into the fire, its embers glowing like alien veins. She wanted to trust her people, but war was already stealing everything else. Could it take trust too? The next morning, the Ghost launched again. Its wings carried not just weapons, but suspicion. Every face Mara passed, every voice in her ear, friend or traitor, ally or executioner. As the Ghost cut across the sky toward the nearest spire, Mara's jaw locked with resolve. The Zorkai wanted Earth. The traitor wanted her to break, but she would give neither, not while she still breathed. The war wasn't just for survival anymore. It was for the soul of humanity. The Ghost screamed low across a dead plain, its wings shuddering in the turbulence. Below, the ground was cracked black glass, rivers dried to ash. In the distance, the alien spire rose like a claw tearing through the sky. It was massive, hundreds of meters high, pulsing with molten veins. At its peak, crimson energy lashed out into the clouds, poisoning the atmosphere. Around its base, thousands of Zorkai drones swarmed in endless patterns. Mara gripped the controls tighter. This is it. This is where the war changes. Alex sat, at her side, scanning readings. Radiation spiking, that thing's rewriting the atmosphere molecule by molecule. If we don't shut it down, this whole continent dies within a week. Behind them, Reyna's voice came through the comm. "I've got a firing solution. We hit the reactor nodes at the base, blow those, and the whole tower collapses." "Simple plan," Mara muttered, which means it's about to get very complicated. The Ghost wasn't alone. Dozens of battered human craft formed up. Jets, bombers, even stolen alien fighters. The last of the East Coast's resistance squadrons. "Listen up," Mara said over the open channel. "This is humanity's line, in the sand. We take down that spire or Earth dies screaming. There's no backup, there's no retreat." Static. Then one by one, pilots responded. For New York. For Boston. For the fallen. Voices cracked with grief and rage, but they were steady. Ghost Squadron dove. The drones came like a storm. Black, angular machines swarming in waves, their energy beams carving across the sky. The first human jets went down in fireballs. Mara rolled hard, slicing through the chaos, her cannons spitting blue fire. "Reactor nodes, 2 o'clock, Reyna shouted. "Marking targets." Explosions lit the base of the spire, but its shields flared, absorbing the impact. The tower didn't even shudder. "They've reinforced it," Alex yelled. "We need to breach the shield grid." Mara's teeth clenched. Of course it wouldn't be easy. Then we cut the grid. "Reyna, find me a weak point." Inside the chaos, something felt wrong. Every move they made, every target they lined up, the drones were already there, intercepting. It was like the enemy knew their playbook. Again, Mara thought. Like the dreadnought. Someone's feeding them. Shield nexus located. Reyna's voice came, sharp. "North quadrant, 200 meters up. We cut that. The tower goes vulnerable." Mara angled the Ghost toward it, engines screaming. Suddenly, the comms shrieked static. Then, "Abort!" a voice barked. It was Reyna. "No!" Another voice cut through. The real Reyna panicked. "That's not me. Don't listen." For a split second, Mara froze. Two Reynas. One real. One traitor. The squadron wavered, some breaking off. Confusion rippled through the fleet. Then the sky lit up. Dozens of human ships exploded in an instant, caught in a crossfire trap. The traitor had led them right into it. Inside the Ghost, alarms screamed. Alex cursed. "They cloned her signal. They're in our network." Mara's vision tunneled. Anger burned hotter than the fire outside. The traitor wasn't just a whisper anymore. They were here, alive among them. "Reyna," Mara snapped, "lock your channel to Ghost only. Everyone else, stay on visual comms. No more voices." Her hands shook on the controls, but her voice was steel. "They want to break us with lies. They want us turning on each other. But we are done running their game. Target the Nexus now." The Ghost dived straight into the storm. Beams scorched its wings. Drones swarmed like gnats. But Mara kept steady. Alex unleashed rockets, shredding the shield pylons around the Nexus. One by one, other human ships joined in, weaving through fire, hammering the same point. The Spire's shield rippled, cracked, then shattered in a blinding flash. "Shields are down!" Reyna cried. Mara didn't hesitate. She drove the Ghost low, skimming the Spire's surface, cannons blazing. Explosions tore across the reactor nodes. Flames raced up the tower like veins bursting. The Spire began to collapse, molten black stone crumbling into itself. Cheers erupted across the fleet. One down. But victory soured instantly. On the comms, the traitor's voice returned, smug, human, clear. "You think that mattered? For every Spire you burn, 10 more rise. And while you waste your strength, the Zorkai prepare their final weapon." Mara's hands clenched into fists. "Who are you?" she snarled into the mic, a low chuckle. "Someone smarter than you. Someone who knows survival means choosing the winning side." Static swallowed the line. The fleet regrouped. What was left of it? Half their number gone. But the Spire destroyed. Mara landed the Ghost on a ruined highway, smoke curling from its engines. Pilots staggered out of their crafts, hugging, crying, screaming. But Mara didn't feel triumph. She felt hunted. The traitor wasn't just feeding the aliens. They were inside the Resistance's veins now. Using human voices, killing trust. She looked at Reyna and Alex, both exhausted, both staring at her with unspoken questions. Who do we trust? Who do we blame? Mara lifted her chin. The traitor's mask slipped today. Next time, we rip it off. She looked back at the burning spire, its carcass lighting the sky red. The war wasn't slowing down, it was accelerating, and humanity's window was closing. The night burned red. From the wreckage of the fallen spire, smoke still curled upward, staining the horizon. The Resistance had camped in the ruins of an old military base, broken concrete walls shielding them from the storm. But no one slept. Paranoia had settled into every corner. Every glance was suspicious. Every silence heavy. The traitor's voice still echoed in Mara's mind. For every spire you burn, 10 more rise. Mara stood over a holographic table inside a cracked bunker. A flickering projection of Earth rotated before her, glowing red where alien spires had erupted. There were dozens, hundreds, and they were spreading fast. Alex leaned against the table, his face gaunt in the dim light. We destroyed one, maybe bought a week for this region, but look at the scale. If they finish this network... He trailed off, shaking his head. Reyna slammed her fist on the table. Then we don't let them finish. We burn them all. Mara stared at the glowing map. The truth weighed like chains. We don't have the numbers. Even if every pilot alive flew until they died, we wouldn't touch a quarter of them. The silence deepened. For the first time, the idea of losing felt real. The ground shuddered. A deep, bone-rattling tremor rolled through the base. Alarms wailed. Dust rained from the ceiling. Pilots rushed outside. On the horizon, the sky split open. Something massive descended, so huge it blotted out the stars. The alien Leviathan. It was unlike the spires. This was a ship, a living fortress. Its hull was black and jagged, kilometers long, pulsing with crimson veins. Whole cities could fit inside its belly. From its underbelly, swarms of drones poured like insects. And with every movement, the air screamed. Like the sky itself was in pain. The Leviathan had come. Panic rippled through the camp. Some pilots shouted orders, others froze. Reyna's voice cut above the chaos. If that thing establishes itself, it'll anchor the whole Spire network. Earth won't stand a chance. Alex's eyes locked on Mara. Steady, determined. This is the final weapon, the one they warned us about. Mara felt the weight settle in her chest. Humanity had pushed the aliens this far. Now the aliens were answering, and the answer was annihilation. That night, strategy dissolved into shouting. Half the resistance wanted to flee west, deeper into hiding. The other half demanded an immediate assault on the Leviathan before it rooted itself. Accusations flew, about the traitor, about Reyna, about who could or couldn't be trusted. At one point, a young pilot even pulled a pistol on Reyna, screaming she was the one feeding intel. Mara ripped the weapon away before blood was spilled, but the damage was done. Unity was cracking, and the traitor hadn't even needed to show their face. Later, inside the Ghost, Mara sat with Alex in silence. The night was cold, and yet sweat clung to her skin. Alex finally spoke, voice low. There's only one way to bring down something that big. From the inside. Mara turned sharply. No, don't even think it. He didn't flinch. I've studied their reactor schematics. The Leviathan has a core, a fusion nexus. If I can get in there with a warhead, I can overload it. Mara's hands curled into fists. That's suicide. Alex's eyes softened. So is fighting it head on. At least this way we have a chance. Her throat closed. She wanted to argue, scream, beg him not to say it. But the fire in his eyes told her he'd already made the choice. He was preparing to die. Reyna found them soon after. Scouts report the Leviathans moving toward the coast. If it anchors in the Atlantic, it'll start birthing more spires. She paused, scanning Mara's face. What's wrong? Mara forced her expression cold. Nothing, just planning our next move. But Reyna's eyes flicked to Alex, then back. She knew, and Mara couldn't tell if that made her an ally or a threat. As dawn broke, the resistance made ready. The Ghost was refueled, patched with scrap metal, wings still scarred from the Spire battle. Pilots strapped into battered cockpits, eyes hollow, jaws clenched. Above them, the Leviathan loomed closer, blotting out the sun. Its shadow swallowed the land. The final battle was coming. Before takeoff, Alex touched Mara's shoulder. His voice was soft, almost gentle. When this is over, if we win, promise me you'll live, not just survive. Live. Mara swallowed hard. Words failed. Instead, she gripped his hand, holding it until the moment broke. Engines roared. The Ghost lifted into the air, leading the fleet one last time. Ahead, the Leviathan opened its jaws, massive hangar maws glowing with red fire. Drones poured out in endless swarms. The sky turned into a storm of light and death, and the Ghost dove straight into it. The sky was no longer blue. It was blackened by the shadow of the Leviathan. The alien fortress hung above the coastline like a floating tomb, its hull glowing with rivers of crimson fire, its voice a deep mechanical hum that rattled through bone and steel alike. The Resistance's fleet, no more than 24 battered fighters plus the Ghost, rose to meet it. Engines screamed, wings trembled, and every pilot knew this was the last flight. Mara's hands gripped the Ghost's controls. The cockpit vibrated around her, glass cracked, alarms blinking red. Yet her focus was steady. Beside her, Alex worked furiously at the console, overriding Ghost systems, syncing human code with stolen alien tech. This ship can't outrun them, he muttered, fingers flying. But it can get us inside, that's all we need. Mara's throat was dry. Say it plain, Alex. He looked up, meeting her eyes. We punch through their swarm. I ride the ghost into the Leviathan's core with the warhead. You get the others out. Her jaw clenched. We both go in. He shook his head, voice almost gentle. No, you're the pilot. You're the one they follow. Without you, they'll scatter. For a moment, Mara wanted to scream at him, beg him to choose life. But deep down, she knew he was right. And that knowledge burned worse than fire. The Leviathan stirred. Its lower hull split open, revealing an abyssal maw lined with pulsing tendrils. From the darkness within, thousands of drones poured, wings shrieking, energy cannons blazing. The sky lit up like hellfire. Ghost Squadron, engage. Mara's voice cut across comms, sharp and commanding. The resistance answered. Fighters dove, missiles streaking, plasma bolts flashing. The first wave of drones exploded in clouds of red sparks. But for every one that fell, 10 more swarmed. The battle fractured into chaos. Screams on the comms, fireballs ripping across the clouds, fighters spiraling into the sea below. Yet still, they fought. Humanity had been broken but not beaten. Inside the ghost, alarms wailed as drones locked on. Missile, 3 o'clock, Alex barked. Mara rolled the ghost hard. The missile skimmed past, detonating close enough to rattle her. Teeth, 2 drones flanked. She pulled the trigger. Blue plasma tore through their cores. The ghost carved a bloody path weaving through fire, wings leaving contrails of smoke. And ahead, the Leviathan grew larger, a mountain of alien flesh and steel blotting out the horizon. In Nani, the chaos, Reyna's voice cut across comms. Mara, listen, there's something you need to know. Static drowned her out. Then a second voice. Cold, alien, but speaking English. You cannot win. Humanity is ash. But your sacrifice amuses us. The traitor's channel. Mara's heart iced. The infiltrator was still alive, still feeding the Leviathan their moves. Rage boiled in her veins. But there was no time to hunt shadows, not now. Approaching entry vector, Alex said, forcing calm. Once we breach, the swarm can't follow. Mara gritted her teeth. And after that, his silence said everything. The Leviathans. Maw loomed. Tendrils lashed outward, lancing the sky with crimson lightning. Fighters burned to ash in seconds. The ghost shuddered as arcs of energy scraped its hull, systems screaming in protest. Hold together, Mara whispered, gripping the controls tighter. Just hold together. Then, with a roar of engines, the ghost dove straight into the maw. Inside, the world changed. The Leviathan's interior was alive. Its walls pulsed like flesh, veins glowing red, machinery fused with organic tissue. The tunnel twisted and narrowed, alive with twitching tendrils that lashed at the intruding ship. It's like flying through a throat, Alex muttered. His face was pale but steady. Focus, Mara snapped, weaving the ghost between snapping tendrils. Sparks rained as metal scraped alien bone. At last, they reached the central chamber, and there it was, the core. A colossal sphere of molten light, suspended in webs of bone and metal, pulsing with every heartbeat of the Leviathan. Energy cascaded in waves, so bright it burned Mara's eyes. Alex stared at it, breathless. That's it. That's the Nexus. One overload and this whole thing dies. He reached for the warhead's arming controls. Mara. His voice softened. She froze. Don't. He gave a faint smile. I told you. This is my job. She shook her head violently. I can fly it in, I can... No. You're the one who has to live, who has to lead when this is over. His eyes locked with hers. Promise me you'll survive this. Promise me you won't waste it. Tears blurred her vision. She couldn't speak. Instead, she pulled him into a sudden, desperate embrace. For one fleeting moment, the war, the Leviathan, the universe, all of it vanished. It was just them. Then she let go, and he was already moving. Alex carried the warhead into the core chamber, light searing his skin, heat blistering his flesh. The tendrils sensed him, shrieking, lashing toward him. He ran anyway. With a roar, he leapt, slamming the warhead into the nexus. The chamber screamed. The Leviathan convulsed. "Mara, now!" His voice crackled over comms, strained and broken. "Get out! Now!" Mara's heart shattered. She yanked the ghost into a climb, engines howling, dodging collapsing walls and thrashing tendrils as the core erupted behind her. Through the comms, Alex's final words came, faint, almost a whisper, "For humanity." Then silence. The Leviathan exploded. The blast ripped through the fortress ship, tearing bone and steel apart in a storm of fire. A shockwave burst outward, consuming the swarm in red light. From the coastline, soldiers and survivors watched the sky ignite, an alien god brought down in flames. The resistance comms erupted in cheers and sobs, but Mara said nothing. Her eyes were fixed on the burning wreckage, hands trembling on the controls. She had kept her promise. She had lived, but the cost was carved into her soul forever.